Today I'm going to show you how to do some paper making, but in a really simplified way so that you can do it with things you have around at home. I'm actually going to add some bits of nature into my paper, so enjoy my little walk as I go and collect some flowers and grasses to mix into my paper pulp later on. So I headed out on one of my favourite walks. This is by my local mill pond where we've got lots of really lovely wildflowers. Do be careful with what you pick up as some things can be poisonous. I really love grasses as they add such a lovely texture into the paper. You can break them up as well. And finer flowers work really well because you can kind of crumble them into the pulp. A great way to start is by shredding some recycling paper. You can also rip that up as well. You'll want a pot of water and put all your shredding in there. The paper I'm using is all either water damaged or old sketches, things that I just don't really want anymore. I've also added in a bit of colour paper as it can help give your paper a nice gentle tone, so I used a cream to help with that. So we begin by making a pulp. I've sped this up a little bit for you so you don't have to bear witness to the length this takes. It's going to take you at least 20 minutes, half an hour just to get a reasonable pulp. You just want to kind of squish it between your fingers. You can kind of rub it between your hands and just try and get as much water in there as possible. You might have to top it up like I just did. I also left mine while I went and had lunch. You can also leave it overnight if you want a really good pulp. After I've been mixing for a while, I added in some torn paper just to throw in a bit of a different texture. Once this was mixed in, I was tearing it further and further as I created the pulp. So just keep going with this pulp making until it kind of resembles like a quite thick porridge. This is the only way I can kind of describe it. Okay, once you've reached your sort of porridge depth, you're going to want to add in a bit of PVA glue. I just added a few sort of blobs. You'll judge it by the feel. As you're mixing, it should feel a little bit sticky, but shouldn't sort of stick to your hands too much. And you'll notice it will go a little bit white, but don't worry because it's PVA, it dries clear so you won't even see it. We're just using it to help bind everything together. Once you've done that, if you want to, you can add in some plant material. So I'm kind of making these quite small so they're easier to mix in and they become part of the pulp, part of the grain of the paper that you're making. I also added some smaller flowers and some grasses into mine just to give it an interesting consistency throughout, so no matter where you roll it out you'll always have a bit of plant and a bit of paper. once you're happy with that, you mix that into your pulp. So make sure you get it really nice and even right throughout the paper. Once you've done that, you're going to need to find a lid of a container. I actually use my pencil tin lid, but you could use like a takeaway container lid, just something that has very little ridges and things in, so you have a nice sort of smooth shell to actually push things into. Cover that with some cling film and make sure you're going to be able to remove that quite easily. You can then, if you want to, grab some of your natural items and actually put them on top of the cling film. Think that this is going to be in reverse when you remove the paper from the mould. Once you're happy with that, you want to grab a handful of your pulp and squish it into the mould over the top of all your planty goodness. You need to be quite consistent where you put the pulp. You want to cover the whole thing and use quite a tough pressure to really squish all that paper into those plants. You then need an old towel or rag. Make sure it's something you don't want to use again because it's going to get a bit gluey, and push down to get the paper as dry as you can, and then remove it from the mould really carefully. This will be really soft and easily breakable at this stage, so be as careful as you can be and lift it up. Don't do this, but just so that you can see, this is the underside of the paper and how it will look when it dries. I just repeated this process a few times and made a few different sheets of paper, so keep going. For the final one, I actually tipped the leftover plant materials directly into the paper. This actually came out as my favourite paper, and it was a lot more solid than the rest, so if it's something you want to try, I recommend giving it a go. Once you've squidged all of your papers out, you want to leave them somewhere flat to dry. I left mine on this board overnight. They're almost dry by the second day because they've been in bright sunshine, so enjoy your paper making.